The pre-dawn fog swirled through Willowmire Bog as Adam Carter's boot sank into the muck. That's when he heard it, a wet, choking gasp that didn't belong in Montana's wilderness. Through the reeds, two golden eyes locked onto his. A bobcat, its once powerful body reduced to a skeletal frame, struggled against the swamp's hungry grasp. Adam hadn't touched another living soul since the accident 2 winters past. Yet before reason could stop him, his weathered hands were moving. The cat's ribs heaved beneath matted fur as the mud sucked harder. Somewhere beneath the filth, a heartbeat fluttered like the last ember in a dying fire. Adam's fingers closed around the scruff of the drowning creature. The bobcat's fangs flashed weakly. Starvation had stolen its fight. With a grunt that tore from his chest, Adam wrenched the animal free. 42 pounds of skin and bones collapsed against him, the cat's heartbeat thundering against his own. The stench of infection and rotting vegetation filled his nose. Yet as he carried his dripping burden toward shore, the impossible happened. The wild creature nuzzled its filthy face into the hollow of his throat, leaving a streak of mud where Martha's locket used to rest against his skin. Back in the cabin's dim light, the bobcat lay motionless on Martha's good kitchen towel. Adam worked methodically, cleaning wounds with hands that hadn't tended anything living in years. The creature's labored breathing sounded too much like hospital ventilators. He almost stopped, couldn't survive failing again. Then one paw twitched against his wrist. "All right, Swamp," Adam murmured, the nickname slipping out. It was what they'd planned to call their second child. The one they'd never had. The cat's golden eyes blinked slowly, as if understanding the weight of that broken promise. Swamp didn't resist as Adam flushed its wounds. It just watched with ancient eyes that saw too much. When the stethoscope touched its chest, the steady thump-thump transported Adam to another examination room. Another fragile body on a stainless steel table. The memory shattered as a rough tongue licked his trembling fingers. Not for food, not even gratitude, just recognition. Adam's breath caught. No living thing had touched him with such deliberate gentleness since Martha's last kiss at the hospital. His hands, usually so steady, fumbled with the antibiotic ointment. At 3:17 a.m., Swamp's fever spiked. Adam knelt on cold hardwood, pressing ice packs against the cat's burning skin. The numbers flashed in his mind, 105 degrees. Just like Jake's temperature that final night. His hands shook as he measured the medication, half for the cat, half tossed back himself in a cheap whiskey chaser. Outside, the wind howled through the pines like a grieving woman. Inside, two broken creatures fought their separate battles against the dark. When Swamp's paw brushed his knee, Adam finally allowed the tears he'd bottled for 2 years to fall. Dawn revealed Swamp curled in a patch of sunlight, breathing steady. Adam studied the cabin he'd let decay since the funerals. Dust coated Martha's favorite reading chair. Jake's finger paintings yellowed on the fridge. But now, fresh claw marks decorated the doorframe. Half-chewed mittens littered the floor. Evidence of life. The bobcat stretched, its tail flicking against a framed photo of their last family vacation. This time, Adam didn't hide the picture face down in the drawer. The first hard frost came early. Adam stood before Martha's cedar chest, hand hovering over her wedding quilt. 50 years of perfect preservation. Never used, never washed, still holding the faintest trace of her lilac perfume. Behind him, Swamp shivered in his makeshift bed. With trembling fingers, Adam unfolded the heirloom and tucked it around the sleeping cat. The moment the fabric settled, Swamp sighed. That same contented sound Martha used to make when slipping into bed after late-night nursing shifts. For the first time since the accident, the quilt served its true purpose. Keeping someone warm. Swamp no longer fit. Not when the cat gleamed like polished oak in sunlight. Adam tested names during their daily walks. Bear. The cat ignored him. Buck. A disdainful tail flick. Then one afternoon, the bobcat pounced on a falling leaf with a chirp so like Jake's childhood laughter that the right name struck him. Charlie, Adam whispered. The cat turned, eyes bright with recognition. as if remembering the boy who'd loved animals with his whole heart. That night, Adam dreamed of his son for the first time without waking in a cold sweat. Adam awoke to weight on his chest. Charlie lay sprawled across him, one paw resting possessively on his beard like a child claiming a favorite toy. Moonlight silvered the battle scars on the cat's ears, wounds from a life before their paths crossed. Outside, the wind rattled branches like skeletal fingers against the window panes. But for the first time in years, Adam wasn't alone with his ghosts. He rested a hand on Charlie's warm back, feeling the vibration of contented purrs chase the shadows from the room. Charlie's teeth sank into Adam's thumb during breakfast. Not hard enough to break skin, just enough pressure to say pay attention. Adam froze, staring at the first intentional touch he'd allowed since the funeral. The bobcat released him, then gently licked the spot. An apology, packed. Adam's vision blurred as something long frozen in his chest cracked open. He scratched behind Charlie's ears, and the cat leaned into his touch like they'd been doing this dance for years instead of days. Outside, the first snow of winter began to fall, blanketing the past in quiet forgiveness. Adam found himself talking to Charlie more than he'd spoken to anyone since the funerals. "Your breath smells like dead fish," he'd grumble as the cat yawned in his face. "Martha would have hated you." But when Charlie cocked his head, Adam kept talking. About the weather, the price of gas, things too heavy to name. One evening, he mentioned Jake's baseball tryouts, the first time he'd said his son's name aloud in years. Charlie responded with a trilling sound that wasn't quite a purr, pressing his forehead against Adam's knee like he understood every weighted syllable. Adam's work gloves kept disappearing. He'd find one in his boot, another draped over the porch railing like some bizarre decoration. Then came the morning he discovered both gloves carefully arranged on Martha's grave marker, a dead mouse placed between them like an offering. Charlie watched from the fence, tail twitching with satisfaction. Adam should have been angry. Instead, he pocketed the mouse and left the gloves where they lay. The first time he'd allowed anything to remain at the gravesite since burying his wife. That night, Charlie brought him a new gift, Martha's favorite hair ribbon, miraculously preserved after 2 years in the elements. Charlie's first solo hunt ended in spectacular failure. The bobcat misjudged his leap, crashing into a pile of firewood while the squirrel escaped. Adam's laughter startled them both, a rusty sound he barely recognized. Charlie responded with an indignant chirp, then promptly face-planted while chasing his own tail. For the first time in memory, the cabin's walls echoed with something other than grief. That evening, Adam dug out Jake's old fishing rod. "Tomorrow," he promised the sulking cat, "I'll show you how Carter men catch dinner." Charlie headbutted his shin in approval, leaving pine needles stuck to Adam's pants, just like Jake used to do after playing in the yard. Ethel Jenkins came bearing a casserole and disapproval. "That thing'll gut you in your sleep," she warned, eyeing Charlie's twitching tail. As if on cue, the bobcat gently carried a wounded sparrow to Adam's lap, chirping urgently until he took the trembling bird. Ethel's frown deepened. "Unnatural is what that is." Adam stroked Charlie's ears, remembering how Martha had nursed injured wildlife back to health. "Maybe," he said, watching the cat nuzzle the now calm sparrow, "some things aren't meant to be tamed, just understood." Ethel left muttering about foolish old men. Charlie waited until her car disappeared before stealing a bite of her famous green bean casserole. The official envelope bore a gold seal and bad news. Adam read the words twice. Illegal possession of endangered species. His hands shook not from fear, but the memory of another bureaucratic letter announcing Jake's death benefits. Charlie sniffed the paper, then sneezed in disdain. Adam almost smiled. "Guess we're both endangered, buddy." That night, he dreamed of flashing lights and stretchers. Woke to Charlie kneading his chest with careful claws, purring loud enough to drown out the phantom sirens. At dawn, Adam didn't reach for the whiskey. Instead, he filled out the permit application, listing Charlie as. Adam met the wildlife officer at mile marker 73 with an envelope of cash and a lie. "Cat ran off last week." The man's sunglasses hid suspicious eyes. "Convenient." A long pause. Then, 8 grand says it stays convenient. Adam handed over the money, Jake's college fund, untouched for years. As the taillights faded, a familiar weight settled against his leg. Charlie stared up, eyes reflecting the moon. "Don't look at me like that," Adam grumbled. "You're worth every penny." The bobcat responded by vomiting a hairball on his boot. "A perfect metaphor for government dealings," Martha would have said. This time, Adam laughed until his ribs ached. Adam woke to crimson paw prints leading from the woods to Charlie's favorite sunspot. His stomach dropped. Then he spotted the source, a gutted coyote carcass carefully arranged by the porch. Charlie lounged nearby, licking a shallow cut on his foreleg with obvious pride. "You idiot," Adam breathed, checking for serious wounds. The cat tolerated the inspection for exactly 3 seconds before biting the stethoscope. That afternoon, Adam installed motion-activated lights around the property, not for protection, but so he could watch Charlie's nighttime patrols from the window. The first time they flickered on, illuminating the bobcat mid-hunt, Adam felt something unexpected. Pride. The wildlife agent released the rabbit with a smirk. "Let's see how tamed your pet really is." Charlie froze. The rabbit hopped closer. Adam held his breath. Then disaster. The bobcat flopped onto his back, inviting the confused rabbit to sniff his belly. The agent's pen hovered over his clipboard. "Well?" Adam challenged. With a grunt, the man checked, non-threatening, and stalked to his truck. Only when the engine faded did Charlie stop playing docile. One lightning pounce later, he deposited the unharmed rabbit in Adam's lap like a living peace offering. "Show off?" Adam muttered, scratching the one spot that always made Charlie's leg twitch. The wildlife agent released the rabbit with a smirk. "Let's see how tamed your pet really is." Charlie froze. The rabbit hopped closer. Adam held his breath. Then disaster. The bobcat flopped onto his back, inviting the confused rabbit to sniff his belly. The agent's pen hovered over his clipboard. "Well?" Adam challenged. With a grunt, the man checked, non-threatening, and stalked to his truck. Only when the engine faded did Charlie stop playing docile. One lightning pounce later, he deposited the unharmed rabbit in Adam's lap like a living peace offering. "Show off?" Adam muttered, scratching the one spot that always made Charlie's leg twitch. The cage door creaked open in designated Wilderness Area 14B. Charlie didn't move. "Go on," Adam urged, voice thick. The bobcat just blinked. After an eternity, Charlie slinked out, then immediately turned and butted his head against Adam's knee. The ranger sighed. "We'll try again next week." Adam nodded, hiding his relief as Charlie leapt back into the carrier. That night, the cat slept curled against Adam's chest, one paw clutching his shirt like a child afraid of nightmares. Outside, coyotes howled. Inside, Adam made a decision. There were places in Montana where paperwork didn't reach. Places a man and his cat could disappear. He reached for the road atlas, Charlie's purr vibrating against his ribs like a second heartbeat. Adam spread the map across the kitchen table, tracing back roads to the Canadian border with a calloused finger. Charlie watched intently, tail flicking like a metronome counting down their escape. "We'll say we're taking you to a sanctuary," Adam murmured, packing Jake's old camping gear. The bobcat responded by knocking over Martha's salt shaker, her long-standing superstition about spilled salt suddenly feeling like a blessing. At dawn, they'd leave. No more government forms. No more release trials. Just 2 old souls disappearing into the wilderness where bureaucracy couldn't find them. Adam tucked Charlie's favorite toy, Martha's oven mitt, into the duffel bag. Red and blue lights shattered their midnight escape. Adam's stomach dropped as the wildlife officer stepped out, flashlight beam catching Charlie's glowing eyes in the carrier. "Going somewhere, Carter?" The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. Adam's fingers twitched toward the door locks. Then chaos. The carrier latch snapped open. Charlie exploded outward in a golden blur, landing on the hood with a feral snarl no one would call tame. The officer stumbled back, tripping over his own boots. In that moment of stunned silence, Adam hit the gas. Charlie leapt through the window as they peeled away, settling in the passenger seat like a fugitive co-conspirator. The truck idled at the crossroads, left to Canada, right toward home. Adam stared at his shaking hands. They'd be waiting at his cabin now. More fines. Maybe jail. Charlie nudged his elbow, then deliberately pressed a paw against the right turn signal. Adam exhaled sharply. You sure? The BobCat's golden eyes held no doubt. At dawn, they pulled into the driveway to find an unexpected sight. Ethel Jenkins facing down 3 wildlife agents with her shotgun resting casually over her shoulder. These gentlemen were just leaving, she announced. The lead agent opened his mouth, then thought better of it when Charlie hopped onto the hood and yawned, displaying every inch of his impressive dentition. Paperwork sorted, Charlie sprawled across his favorite sunspot like a king surveying reconquered territory. Adam sipped coffee, watching the cat's ears twitch at every birdsong. Then, without warning, Charlie stood. His body went rigid. Something in the pines had caught his attention. Before Adam could speak, the BobCat vanished into the underbrush. Hours passed. The porch swing creaked in lonely rhythm. At midnight, Adam finally went inside, leaving the door cracked, just in case. He refused to acknowledge the familiar weight settling in his chest. Not again. Not after everything. Outside, an owl hooted. Somewhere beyond the tree line, branches rustled with secrets. Snow transformed the cabin into a frozen diorama of Adam's loneliness. He kept Charlie's food bowl full out of habit, the kibble remaining untouched until squirrels discovered it. The wildlife permit hung on the fridge beneath one of Jake's old magnets. Sometimes, standing at the kitchen window, Adam would catch movement at the forest's edge. A flash of gold, a flickering tail. He never called out. Some bonds weren't meant for leashes or paperwork. On the solstice, he found fresh tracks circling the property, pacing like a sentry. That night, he slept better knowing something wild still watched over him. Adam woke to scratching at the door. Not the tentative sound of paws, but deliberate claws on wood. He opened it to find Charlie, frost dusting his whiskers, dragging something heavy. A buck's antler still bloody at the base. Jesus, Adam breathed. The BobCat dropped his prize with an expectant chirp. Then Adam noticed the ribbon, Martha's favorite hair ribbon, now shredded but unmistakable, tied clumsily around the antler's base. His vision blurred. Charlie butted against his legs, purring loud enough to rattle the windows. Some gifts couldn't be bought. Some homecomings needed no words. Adam left the antler on the mantel beside their family photos. Charlie returned at dawn with his left ear torn and fur matted with blood. Adam's medical training kicked in before the panic could surface. "Hold still, you idiot," he muttered, flushing the wounds. The BobCat endured the treatment with uncharacteristic patience, flinching only when Adam dabbed at the deepest gash. Territorial fights were natural, the vet had warned. That didn't make the claw marks across Charlie's ribs any easier to stomach. As Adam worked, the cat licked his wrist with a sandpaper tongue, forgiveness and reassurance in one gesture. That night, Charlie slept pressed against Adam's side, his rumbling purr the only painkiller either of them needed. The first spring breeze brought restlessness. Charlie paced the property line, scent marking obsessively. Adam recognized the signs. "Go on then," he said one evening, scratching behind Charlie's ears where the fur grew thickest. The BobCat hesitated, then butted his head against Adam's chest hard enough to leave bruises. At dawn, he was gone. Adam resisted checking the trail cameras. Some things needed privacy. He busied himself repairing the porch steps, trying to ignore the hollow feeling where Charlie usually lounged. 3 nights later, a familiar cry woke him, not at the door, but from the woods. Proclamation, not a plea. Adam smiled into the dark. Curiosity finally drove Adam to follow the trail camera coordinates. Deep in the pines, he found it. A hollow log lined with stolen fabric. Martha's missing sweaters, his old flannel shirts, even Jake's baby blanket, miraculously preserved. And nestled in the center, 3 squirming BobCat kittens, their golden eyes blinking up at him with Charlie's exact expression. Adam backed away slowly, Some discoveries weren't meant for human hands. That evening, he left venison near the den, chuckling when the security feed showed Charlie dragging the offering inside while his mate watched with amused tolerance. The circle continued. Adam became a regular visitor to the tree line, always bringing gifts, fresh meat, discarded toys from the thrift store. Once even a wind-up mouse that sent the kittens into paroxysms of delight. Charlie supervised from a distance, his posture relaxed but eyes alert. The boldest kitten, a female with Martha's coloring, soon learned to recognize Adam's truck. She'd come bounding out, tripping over oversized paws, to headbutt his boots in greeting. "Your grandpa's a pushover," Charlie seemed to say when Adam arrived with a ridiculous pink collar for the runt. The kittens would never be tame. Neither would Charlie. But as summer warmed the pines, Adam realized he'd somehow gained not just a companion, but a wild, wonderful family. Adam watched from the porch as Charlie led his kittens through their first real hunting lesson. The smallest one, the runt with Jake's curious eyes, pounced too soon, sending the field mouse darting to safety. Charlie gave a soft chuff of disapproval, then demonstrated the proper crouch. Adam's chest tightened, remembering teaching Jake to cast a fishing line with that same patience. When the bold female finally caught her first vole, she carried it proudly to Adam's feet. He accepted the gift with solemn gratitude, just as Martha had taught him to do with Jake's mud pie masterpieces. The circle of life had teeth and claws, but also unexpected grace. The email came from a nature channel wanting to film Montana's miracle bobcat family. Adam almost deleted it until he saw the attachment. A trail cam photo of Charlie gently carrying one of his kittens across a stream. The crew arrived the next week, setting up blinds near the den. Adam warned them, "They're wild animals. Don't expect." His words died as Charlie strolled into camp and stole the director's sandwich. For 3 days, they captured footage that defied nature documentaries. A bobcat nudging his kittens toward a human, then stepping back as if to say he's safe. The resulting film won awards, but Adam kept the raw footage where Charlie's purr rumbled through every scene. When the hail came, it came hard golf ball-sized chunks battering the roof. Adam was out the door before the first ping ended, flashlight cutting through the downpour. He found them huddled under the porch, Charlie and his mate shielding the kittens between their bodies. Without hesitation, Adam hauled open the storm cellar. Inside, now, the wild family hesitated only a moment before darting down the steps. That night, as the tempest raged above, Adam sat on the cellar steps watching over his strange, furry family. At dawn, when the danger passed, Charlie led them back into the woods without a backward glance. But the bold female lingered just long enough to lick Adam's fingers in silent thanks. Autumn painted the aspens gold when Charlie's family began to disperse. First the mate, then the 2 males, each vanishing into the wilderness with only a final nudge against Adam's knee as goodbye. The bold female stayed longest, often appearing at dusk to share Adam's porch swing as he sipped tea. Then one November morning, she too was gone, leaving only a single paw print in the frost on Martha's grave marker. Adam didn't need trail cameras to know Charlie would be the last to leave. Their bond ran deeper than seasons. Still, he caught himself listening for familiar footsteps in the night, the absence heavier than he cared to admit. Snow fell early that year, blanketing the woods in silence. Charlie's visits grew sporadic, sometimes days between appearances. Adam took to keeping venison in the fridge, ready to warm whenever those golden eyes appeared at the window. One bitter night, he awoke to find Charlie curled at the foot of his bed like the early days, frost clinging to his whiskers. Neither moved as dawn crept across the quilt. When Adam finally rose to make coffee, the bobcat followed, leaning heavily against his leg with each step. They both pretended not to notice the limp, the gray around Charlie's muzzle. Some truths needed no words. Spring came late. Adam was repairing the porch when Charlie appeared, moving slower than the melting snow. In his mouth, a perfect turkey feather. Not dropped, plucked. Adam knelt, accepting the offering with both hands. Charlie's breathing was labored, but his eyes still held that fierce intelligence. That night, for the first time, the bobcat didn't vanish at dusk. He settled on Martha's quilt instead, watching as Adam built up the fire. Outside, peepers sang their first chorus of the season. Inside, two old warriors kept comfortable silence, the feather displayed prominently on the mantel beside Jake's baseball glove. Adam knew before he opened his eyes. The cabin held that particular stillness that follows a soul's passing. Charlie lay where he'd settled the night before, body curled as if sleeping, but undeniably gone. The quilt bore no death struggle, just peaceful release. Adam's hands shook as he stroked the still warm fur one last time. Later, he'd bury Charlie beneath the young aspen where the bobcat used to lounge, the turkey feather marking the spot. But for now, he simply sat on the floor beside his old friend, sunlight creeping across them both, remembering a drowning creature who'd taught him how to live again. Summer brought an unexpected visitor, the bold female, now full-grown, leading her own single kitten to Adam's porch. The little one had Charlie's eyes and his own curious spirit, immediately investigating Adam's boots with tiny, needle-like claws. As Adam set out food, he noticed something. The kitten's left ear had a distinctive notch, just like Charlie's battle scar. Coincidence, probably, but when the little bobcat chirped in that particular way, Adam's breath caught. The female watched him carefully, then touched her nose to his knee before melting back into the woods, leaving her offspring to explore its inheritance. The screen door clicked softly behind Adam as he went to find Jake's old teddy bear. Years turned like pages in a well-loved book. The new generation grew wild and free, but always returned, sometimes for food, sometimes just to sprawl in the sun while Adam puttered in his garden. The original female visited occasionally, watching from a distance as her offspring played with their own kittens near the old aspen. Adam's hair whitened, his steps slowed, but his eyes remained sharp, always spotting the golden gazes in the underbrush. On quiet evenings, he'd tell stories to whoever listened, human visitors or feline, about a drowning cat and a drowning man who'd saved each other. The details grew polished with retelling. The winter Adam turned 80, the bobcats grew restless. They paced the property line daily, golden eyes scanning the woods with unusual intensity. Inside, Adam dozed by the fire, his breathing shallow but even. On the solstice, the entire clan gathered on the porch, 3 generations of wild things keeping vigil. When the hospice nurse came at dawn, she found him gone, a contented smile on his face, surrounded by paw prints in the ashes by the hearth. The bobcats lingered until the funeral ended, then vanished back into the wilderness. But locals swear that on certain golden evenings, if you're very quiet, you can hear purring in the pines near the old Carter plot, where a simple stone reads, "Beloved by his family, all of them." The cabin stood quiet after Adam's passing, but never quite empty. Neighbors reported seeing golden eyes watching from the tree line at dusk. Ethel Jenkins took over feeding duties, chuckling when she found the food bowl surrounded by tiny bobcat prints each morning. One October evening, she spotted the bold female, now gray-muzzled herself, sitting upright on the porch swing, tail twitching in rhythm with the creaking chains. Just watching, just remembering. When the first snow fell, someone had neatly arranged 3 turkey feathers on Adam's grave. No human hands could have placed them so precisely. Young Ranger Mark Wilson moved into Adam's cabin, warned about the bobcat problem. He laughed until his first night, when a thunderclap revealed 5 pairs of glowing eyes staring through the screen door. The next morning, he found his muddy boots meticulously cleaned of burrs. Over time, a truce formed. Mark kept the food bowl full. The cats kept rodents away. And when his first child was born, a particularly brave kitten left a gift on the welcome mat. A perfect pine cone, just like the ones in Jake's old collection box upstairs. 20 years after the original film, a nature crew returned to trace Charlie's lineage. Trail cams revealed something extraordinary, descendants still carrying distinctive markings from that first miraculous pairing. The bold female's great-grandkitten had Charlie's exact ear notch and Adam's way of cocking its head. When the crew played old footage of Adam's voice, every bobcat within earshot froze, ears pivoting toward the sound. The resulting documentary, Legacy of Trust, aired globally, But Mark kept the raw footage where you could see one elderly female wiping her eyes with a weathered paw. The town raised money to convert Adam's property into a wildlife sanctuary. At the dedication ceremony, just as the mayor cut the ribbon, a streak of gold darted across the path, a young bobcat carrying something in its mouth. Later, workers found the item carefully placed on Adam's grave. Martha's long-lost wedding band, polished to a shine. No one could explain where it had been hidden all these years, or how the animal knew its significance. Mark hung it on a leather cord above the cabin's fireplace, where it catches the light every morning at exactly 7:32, Adam's customary breakfast time. When wildfire threatened the sanctuary, Mark refused evacuation until every animal was safe. Exhausted after days of rescue work, he collapsed on Adam's old porch and awoke to gentle pressure on his chest. The oldest surviving descendant, Charlie's great-great-granddaughter, stood over him, ears flat with concern. Around them, the sanctuary's creatures waited in unusual quiet. Deer, foxes, even a young bear, all unharmed, all watching. As the fire crews arrived, the animals melted back into the smoky woods, leaving Mark with paw prints on his shirt and the uncanny sense he'd been guarded by something more than chance. On what would have been Adam's 90th birthday, Mark set out extra venison. At twilight, an entire bobcat clan emerged, elders, juveniles, even a new litter of squirming kittens. They ate peacefully while Mark played old home videos on the porch. No human commented on how the cats' heads tilted at Adam's laughter, or how the matriarch placed one paw on the projector screen when young Jake appeared. Later, trail cams would show the clan visiting the grave in single file, each pausing to touch the headstone with their noses before vanishing into the pines. Biologists confirmed the sanctuary's bobcats carried unique genetic markers, Charlie's lineage, thriving against all odds. When the last known granddaughter passed at age 17, ancient for a wild bobcat, Mark buried her near the aspen tree. The next morning, fresh prints circled the grave, tiny, hesitant ones. Weeks later, cameras captured a new female with familiar golden eyes nursing 3 kittens. The cycle continued as cycles do. Mark kept Adam's journal updated anyway, noting each new generation's quirks in careful script. Some traditions demand honoring. Grieving children began visiting the sanctuary, drawn by stories of the healing bobcats. Shy kids found kittens willing to play. Angry teens calmed when elders stared them down with Adam's exact expression. One autistic girl spoke her first words here, to a one-eared male who carried her dropped mittens with exaggerated care. Mark never trained the cats. Never needed to. They seemed to remember, in their wild way, what Adam had taught them about broken humans. The donation box always mysteriously filled after particularly magical encounters, though no one ever saw who left the extra bills. The Sanctuary guest book's final page holds blank lines and a simple prompt. Who was your Charlie? What wild creature saved you when you didn't know you needed saving? Thousands have answered, fishermen recalling a seal that led them through fog, hikers describing foxes that warned of cliffs, elderly veterans writing about war pigeons that carried hope. The most touching entry? A shaky child's script. A bobcat licked my tears when Mom died. She tasted like pretzels. Mark keeps extra tissues nearby. Some stories demand them. As dusk paints the sanctuary golden, visitors fall silent. This is when they usually appear, shadows among shadows, eyes catching the last light. The bobcats don't approach, don't perform. They simply exist at the edge of human space, watching as their ancestors once watched a broken man on this very porch. And if you listen closely, above the peepers and wind chimes, you might hear it, a chirping purr that sounds almost like words. Almost like, welcome home. The staff know better than to explain. Some mysteries grow more precious when left wild.